I have a question for you. Have you ever had this happen to you with a shotgun? Do you wish it went more like this? Well, let's see if we can't make that a reality. Hello and welcome to my 10th weapon guide for Escape from Tarkov. My name is Freakatoid, and today we are going to start our complete guide on shotguns with my first of 3 parts. In this video, I'll be covering the shotguns themselves, since they act differently than any other class of weapons in this game. I may briefly talk about buckshot or slugs in this video, but part 2 will expand on all things I discovered about buckshot, flechette, and piranha rounds, and part 3 will talk about what I discovered with slugs. So let's go ahead and break them down one by one. Before any specific shotgun is highlighted, I need to go ahead and drop some universal information. Shotguns all have their own spread, which is just the accuracy that slugs and pellets will remain contained in. For buckshot, I can confirm that this is entirely dependent on the shotgun that is used, the length of the barrel that is used, and if a choke is present. According to my testing, it's not affected by the durability of the shotgun at all, which means that even the most damaged shotguns with a longer barrel will show a tighter spread of pellets than a shorter barrel version of perfect condition. The MOA of shotguns did not appear to indicate any helpful information about the spread of shotguns either, much to the detriment of my mental sanity when I was testing them all. The spread of all of these shotguns is globally pretty damn accurate. If you have played any Call of Duty game, you'll be used to some very wide variety of spread that practically climbs across the screen. Tarkov is way different. During my tests, I was able to fit the spread of every single shotgun within the center mass circle of these targets from 10 meters away. Aiming down your weapon or changing the fire mode of your shotgun will also not change this spread at all. In a weird sense, you have to precisely place the imprecise spread of pellets in order to use the shotguns to great effect. I will add the results of these spread tests within each shotgun's category. Some players may be familiar with the idea that rounds tend to go a little below or above the intended point of aim when looking down a sight. Usually this is pretty ignorable since most rounds fly pretty straight for a very long distance. Shotgun shells, on the other hand, have the most inconvenient and noticeable problem with this. For example, standard buckshot will land below the point of aim at closer ranges, and at around 15 to 20 meters will start to land high above the point of aim. This continues for quite a bit before lowering back to the point of aim at around 50 meters. This applies to all shotguns and is an even worse problem for slug rounds, in which slugs vary even from each other in how much it deviates from the zeroing of shotguns. A good rule of thumb is to aim just a little bit lower than your actual target when firing at around 15 plus meters away. This should help you land your pellets more easily, but for slugs it will be much more drastic. I will cover this more in future parts of this topic. As a disclaimer, I have not tested all the previous information to see if this holds up with slugs, and I do not plan on doing so until I'm finished with part 2 of this series. We'll start off with the most important shotgun to every player at the start of a wipe, the MP133. The 133 is probably going to be your first experience with a shotgun, considering you need it for 2 different quests within the first day or so of tasking. Gunsmith Part 1 and Debut both require you obtain this weapon, but you do not have to have them found in Raid. Jaeger will sell them for a reasonable price as soon as you unlock him, and is one of the few times you can purchase items to complete a hand-in quest. It will start off with the 510mm barrel, which is the smallest one available. You can expect a pretty decent spread of pellets without any changes to the barrel or adding a choke. This shotgun is a pump action, which means you'll have to play as many quick peeks and well-placed shots as possible. You won't have the luxury of being able to dump all of your ammo down range in an emergency as a result. I highly recommend bringing high damage ammo if you insist on using this shotgun, but putting as many fights at close range and aiming for the upper body and head will kill just about anything, regardless of what you are using. Personally, this is a dead average shotgun, with no real advantages to boast about. I wouldn't recommend using this shotgun unless you are trying to create the ultimate long-range sniper shotgun with slugs. By the way, this shotgun is tied for being the most accurate shotgun in the game, with the longest barrel and choke attached. I could see some use in some precision shotgun build, but by reducing the spread so much, you're pretty much destroying its close-range viability. Here are the results of every barrel and choke combination test for spread on the MP133. The MP153 is essentially the semi-auto version of the MP133, and can even use the same tube extensions. This shotgun is one of the strongest performers in the game, for a number of reasons. It's very accurate, it has lower recoil, and up to an 8-round tube magazine, and being very customizable. If you asked an experienced Tarkov player what shotgun they have used the most, the likely answer is this one. The good accuracy on this weapon means you can get away with placing your shots with great care, while the low recoil means that if that tactic fails, you can just dump some more rounds in that general direction. You can make slugs, buckshot, or, I put slugs on here twice, work with great effectiveness as the MP153 is not picky. It doesn't even have to be kitted out. You can get away with a simple tube extension and call it a day. Shotguns in general do enjoy a very cheap build cost, no matter how complicated or simple you make it. I got nothing bad to say about the 153, other than that the tube mag makes reloading a bit of a hassle, but that's nothing you can't work around. Here are the spread tests for the MP153. So this ended up being one of the guns that screwed with my head during testing, as the MOA for this weapon was listed as being pretty accurate on the longer barreled version. It turns out that this weapon has some of the largest pellet spread, and doesn't change much at all from all its different sizes, including the secondary sawed-off version. It's the cheapest shotgun available, and will never jam. So some have deemed this weapon as the poverty blaster, being seen as a last resort weapon when you just don't have any money. If I'm being honest with you, the most useful version of this weapon is the sawed-off version. This variant can be equipped in the holster slot with your pistols, and is the lightest of all shotguns in the game, making for the perfect panic mode secondary. Take a bit of care with your shots with one barrel at a time, or go all out and blow your load with the dual trigger firing mode. Pause. Here is the spread testing with the double barrels. The MP155 ended up being a shotgun I wasn't the biggest fan of. It is literally only better than the sawed-off double barrel in terms of spread accuracy. Even with a choke, it still doesn't end up being any better than most of the other shotguns are capable of. Unless you're using slugs, you will not find success with this weapon at longer ranges at all. And by longer ranges, I mean past 15 meters. It's pretty damn good at emptying its tube magazine within 10 meters to annihilate your target, but like every tube-fed shotgun, you must then go through the grueling task of reloading one shell at a time. If you don't show some accuracy and restraint, you'll leave yourself wide open for someone to counterattack or rush you. This weapon's one claim to fame is its Ultima chassis. It has a unique thermal sight attachment that can be used as the primary sight of a weapon, but I wouldn't solely use it in this manner. Tacking on some iron sights, or even a taller holographic sight is necessary, as the camera will block the front part of the weapon for smaller, more close-range sights. In my opinion, I don't think that it's all that worth it. You could say that the thermal gives you a way to look around during night raids or being able to see through the hand of God, but I would just avoid this shotgun if possible. If you cannot resist, I would use a muzzle brake rather than a choke to help keep its close-range dominance. Here are the spread results for the MP155. I didn't think much about the Mossberg 590 being a standout shotgun in any sense when I first looked at it. It has no way to increase its accuracy or capacity, and is pretty limited in the cosmetics department. Once I got done with the spread testing, I also realized that it had a pretty average spread. To seal the deal, it's a pump action, which means it's kind of behind all the semi-auto shotguns in the game. It wasn't until I took it into a raid where I realized the simplicity of the weapon was actually what makes it pretty charming. You may be inclined to put a sight on it like all the other shotguns, but I personally am a huge fan of the sights that were already on it. The rear ring sight on this gun makes for a nice guesstimate area, where if you're in emergency, you can just place whatever you're shooting at within the ring and fire. The front and rear combo is also very helpful together, giving you a much clearer idea of where the shots will end up than most of the other shotgun irons. In practically every way, this shotgun ends up being the perfect teaching tool for how all the other shotguns should work. Keep this shotgun within closer ranged fights and play with your positioning, and the Mossberg 590 will not disappoint you. This was the result of spread testing with the 590. Okay, so real quick, I have to ask you not to judge me here. If the MP133 is the pump-action shotgun better suited for longer range builds, and the Mossberg 590 is best suited to the middle ground, I'm going to suggest that the M870 is where you should go all out on a speedy, close-range build. Here is what I primarily used. Hey! I said no judging! Hey! Shut up! Funny antics aside, the 870 is actually still a very nice contender at decent range, even with the minimized size. But I know what you're gonna ask. Why would I not want a shotgun that can carry itself out to longer ranges? Well, if you were using a shotgun as a primary weapon, you'd be absolutely correct. But what I'm suggesting with the 870 is to have a hard-hitting secondary weapon to pair with something situational or slow, like an SKS or a bolt-action rifle. Weapons like these are either unperforming at close range or take a deadly amount of time to reload back into fighting condition. If you wanted something perhaps a bit more reliable than the sawed-off double barrel, that's where I believe this shotgun best fills a position. There are a few barrels to interchange this gun with, but the two 508mm barrels share the same accuracy. Also, the 355mm barrel is a very strange and very special case on this list. For one thing, you straight up cannot find this barrel on traders, no matter what level you are. The flea market may have it, but because it's only found in Raid, it's either missing entirely or sold at a premium. The 355mm barrel is still my favorite for the shorty build simply because you have that front sight on it, meaning I can skip a red dot and thus save on the added weight. Regardless though, build it how you want. The showcase from earlier is just my personal preference for a lightweight and high ergo shotgun build. Here are the results of my spread testing with this shotgun. So during the initial spread testing for shotguns, I was expecting the Saga 12 to end up having some pretty major pellet spread. After all, with an MOA of 20.63, who would ever expect that this would be one of the most accurate shotguns in the game? Seriously, this gun was the start of my sanity's downward spiral when I was gathering information for this video. The Saga 12 is a very unique shotgun. It's one of the only mag-fed shotguns in the game, meaning you can get a complete reload much quicker than a complete reload of larger tube-fed shotguns. The downside is that the magazines take up quite a lot of space for barely containing much ammo at all. You have 1x2 5-round mags, 1x3 10-round mags, and 2x2 20-round drums to pick from with this weapon, with really none of them being a bad choice. You'll be topping them off very frequently, as these mags can go dry in an instant if you aren't paying attention. Shotgun ammo also doesn't stack very well in comparison to other ammo types, so the amount of reserve ammo you are able to bring won't be very much if you don't have a lot of spare room. Like I said earlier, this shotgun is incredibly accurate, so you really don't need to spam the semi-auto fire rate of it. But who do I care? Dump all the rounds if you really want to put the fear of God into them. The accuracy also means that you can easily get away with using a well-placed spread mentality, which goes quite well with being able to refresh your mags in a jiffy. The weapon is very versatile with the ammo it is best with, as having a weapon capable of both reliable accuracy and large volume of fire means you can easily set up multiple magazines filled with different ammo to best suit the next situation you're expecting. As to how to best build this weapon, I personally would go all out with recoil control here. The more stable follow-up shots at longer ranges and controllable mag dumps are a deadly combination of traits, where this weapon already has incredible accuracy. And I dare say, very well could be the most adaptable shotgun in the entire game. Just don't get caught with your pants down when you do blow through your magazines. Here is the Saga 12's performance in the spread test. The Benelli M3 is very similar, but a much better MP155. It can change to a semi-auto mode, and has a tighter, more predictable pellet spread, and can hold up to 13 shells in a tube when modded. It's another shotgun with minimal amounts of customization, but luckily it doesn't really need it. There is really no point to using this weapon in pump action mode unless it's just a preference thing. It has a pretty decent spread out to 13 meters, which can reach a little further due to its ability to spam rounds with decent enough control. Muzzle attachments are available with this weapon, but you can miss out on being able to suppress this weapon when using the 13 shell tube. The Benelli M3 quickly became one of my favorite shotguns for the same reason as the 590 from earlier, as I consider this to basically be a semi-auto version of the 590. This weapon has a uniquely quicker tube reload than the other shotguns, at least from what I noticed. This helps the weapon feel less like a commitment whenever you need to add a few shells here and there, and certainly helps when you're reloading while you're running for your life. It's a basic and well-performing shotgun that doesn't have the pump action downside of the 590. Honestly, I had so much fun with this one, but it's still outshined in range by the Saga 12 and the MP153. Here are the test results for the Benelli M3. It's very hard to recommend using the MTS. Everything about the weapon seems tailor-made to be bad. The recoil is extremely high, the fire rate feels weird, and the ammo capacity is permanently at 5 shells, with perhaps the slowest reload in the shotgun category. The recoil may not seem like a huge issue on paper, but when you actually shoot this thing, the weapon pretty much blocks any sight picture you may have had on your target, which makes follow-up shots very awkward. The firing modes don't help this case either, as single action requires you to wait for the hammer to be cocked back after every shot, but ends up being pretty steady. Double action is much faster with follow-up shots, but for some reason it feels like the recoil is slightly cranked up, and waiting for it to recenter honestly takes just as much time as single fire takes to ready the next shot. The cylinder that holds ammo for this weapon is technically the most complicated and unique feature about this weapon. For one thing, you can individually load chambers with different kinds of shells, just like loading different ammo types into mags or tubes. But you can have a much easier time selecting what you want to use next. I would go further into detail about how nice this is, but the fact remains that only having 5 shots with the slowest reload and all the previous issues heavily discouraged me to ever recommend this weapon for any situation. Hell, I'd rather use the double barrel over this weapon. The accuracy is not a good reason to use this with everything I just talked about, but here are the results of spread testing for this weapon. Everything about this weapon screams absolute power. It's easily the most scary pump-action shotgun to go up against in Tarkov. The buckshot deals uber amounts of damage. The slug rounds are the single most powerful in the game, and it even has a particularly rare ammo in the form of the flashbang round. To really drive this home, the shrapnel 10 rounds deal enough damage to consistently one-shot scavs and players with a leg shot at closer ranges. Both shrapnel 10 and 25 rounds will pretty much always destroy a limb with a single pellet or two, even at some very good ranges for a shotgun. The spread of this shotgun is on the larger end, but the sheer amount of damage that you can cause with just a few pellets makes the spread arguably more scary. The slug rounds are f***ing fear-inducing. Real talk for a second, for those of you who have been playing Tarkov for a bit. Have you ever looked at hold on.
Barricada.
Barricada slugs? Do you even know what barricada means? Barricade! Just listen for half a second. Imagine you have to prepare for a raid by using a shell called a barricade round. Oh, I'm sorry, did AP-20 scare you with 164 damage and 37 penetration power? Try 192 damage with 39 penetration power with an armor damage of 75%! It's a miracle this slug doesn't exist on a semi-auto weapon. The flashbang rounds deal straight up emotional damage. This fireable flashbang round may be one of the rarest ammo in the game, but all it takes is one flashbang followed up with, well, anything to end someone's raid early and send them on a Reddit rant. So why do you not see everyone using this shotgun? With all these incredible damage stats and relatively available ammo, why am I almost never dying to it? On paper, this weapon seems incredibly stupid to pass over, but if you ask some other people about it, they may say something about the range or the fact that it's just another shotgun. The real reason that this weapon has never felt consistent or accurate is that the irons on it are completely misaligned. Seriously, just look at this for a second. This weapon doesn't look to be zeroed correctly at all, so you kinda just have to adjust for where the shots should go. Even though you technically can work around this misalignment, it's just too much of a hassle to make it work in a situation where you have to make quick decisions. And because it's a pump action, you will be punished for missing. It's a problem that single-handedly makes the weapon feel like absolute garbage. And unfortunately, no one really feels like getting to the bottom of why a shotgun would feel inconsistent, since they all kind of did already. Here are the results for the KS-23's spread. And just to let you know, I did adjust the aim so that the spread was nice and centered for the buckshot rounds. You might expect me to tell you that this gun is in the game for meme purposes, but I was actually surprised at how well it did. It's not going to outperform any of the other shotguns here in a fair fight, but you can manage just fine with it. For one thing, this shotgun is tied for the most accurate shotgun in the game, with an astoundingly tight pellet spread. Despite this, the damage is still low due to the 20 gauge ammo. You can't kill someone with one pellet to the head no matter what range you try it with, needing about 2 to 3 most of the time. Almost none of the ammo is good for armor penetration either, and what can doesn't do it very well, which in my humble opinion is the reason this weapon is actually underperforming. It's not as much of a meme weapon as I expected it to be, but the combination of being a bolt action and not actually being that strong just makes the weapon feel awkward to use. Here was the spread test on this weapon. The Tarkov community has a pretty mixed reputation with shotguns, and in all truthfulness, nobody sees them as a viable option for late gameplay other than the niche flechette rounds. In my opinion, nothing quite beats experience. As much as I can tell you about all the different shotguns in the game, it won't truly make the same impression as people who have done their fair share of pump action justice. I found some reliable sources in the Tarkov community and asked them about their thoughts on shotguns in this game. In this case, I figured I would keep the topic on the shotguns themselves used during quests, since that's what a majority of people use them for. But let's ask them about their recommendations.
I don't dislike them. I don't dislike shotguns at all. I would just rather play something else, like play with something else, like a rifle. But again, it's just one of those things where it's a lot of personal preference, because if you're doing shotgun stuff early wipe, it's great because that's what you're facing. But when you're in wipe, like at this point right now, trying to do stuff with shotguns would suck. None of them have the same point of aim as each other, and that's what makes shotguns so, I feel like, so difficult to do something like that with.
It's not my preferred weapon. I prefer something with automatic. The higher fire rate lets me rely on at least hitting more bullets versus RNG of shotguns.
You like or dislike shotguns? In this game, Freaktoid, I hate shotguns. Hate them. Hate them. Hate them. Hate them.
Penetration. I feel like a buckshot or slugs of some sort should do better penetration. Yeah, that's a very good true too, is depending on how far away you're shooting.
I find it hard to believe that Tarkov can account for the amount of pellets to be accurate within each damage they deal. There's no way. There's no way they can account for the damage accurately each pellet that does damage. Same way they can't accurately depend on 5.56 or 5.45 to accurately do consistent damage.
Okay, so part of it, Freaky Toad, is a skill issue on my end. I'm not good with shotguns. Ah, man. I don't like shotguns personally. I'm not gonna say they're bad because I die to them a lot. It's mainly a skill issue. Some of the rounds, some of the slugs do hit kind of weird. Like I don't know what's the zeroing with the shotguns. I'm just not a fan of them. I struggle with setup and doing any shotgun kill quests. So that's why I don't like them, Freaky Toad. That's why I don't like them.
Well, early wipe when you don't have a whole lot of armor, it makes it a lot easier to do shotgun battles. The issue that I have with them is if you're trying to do them late wipe, it's going to be hard. You're going to be facing in-game armor, in-game bullets, and a shotgun versus an HK with A55A1 is just going to decimate. Maybe not so much close range, but a lot of it will have to do with you'll be losing the long range battle.
In what way do you believe shotguns excel? I feel like that's a difficult one to answer. I wish they excelled more. I wish they acted more as shotgun. I don't know if I could say shotguns do excel. Again, it comes down to the RNG of like the server and hit reg.
What way do you believe they excel? Yeah, CQB, close up. Close quarters with some flechette. Piranha's pretty good close quarters. I mean, after playing Arena, what does that Saga have? If anybody can tell me, what shells does the Saga have? Yeah, Magnum and Express are good. Yeah, it might be Express. Yeah, CQB it just rips. So that's where they excel for sure, is CQB.
Research your ammo. Advice I would give to a player about to use a shotgun for the first time: research your ammo and figure out what kind of fights you're planning on getting into before that, because I'm looking at the ammo chart right now for just 12 gauge and there's 17 different rounds, and there's just so much to look at. I would definitely research the ammo for what you're trying to do, and then also as to what kind of armor pen it does.
Do your research on ammo and aim for the legs or head. Don't try to aim center mass with shotguns. Try to spread your bullets out as far as you can on their legs.
Shotgun for the first time. Aim legs, pull trigger till gun goes click. Easy peasy. Yeah, pretty much. So right now everybody's a tank and running high class armor. So the chance of you penning their armor with any AP, if you have AP 20s, but aim for the flesh. Aim for the flesh and let her rip. Tickle those toes. Tickle those toes.
Players, only scavs.
I'll use them for quests, and that is it. That is it.
While the Tarkov community as a whole has mixed feelings about shotguns, I'm hoping that a little more clarity and direct information may give everyone a more informed opinion on the matter. Who knows, maybe all it takes is someone to look into them a bit more than at face value. I, for one, feel much more confident in my ability to use shotguns, and I hope some of the visuals and personal experience I shared helps you feel the same way when wielding these unruly beasts. One more time for the people that made it to the end of this video. I plan on making 2 more parts to the shotgun weapon guide. Part 2 will be covering buckshot and flechette rounds, while Part 3 will be covering slug rounds, so look out for those videos in the near future. I hope you enjoyed the video, and perhaps learned something new. Be sure to subscribe.